Hey, it's Rich from Plank PE, and we are today looking at our live session. So those of you who are in the chat, just comment if there's any topics that you particularly need to have a look at, because that is what we're here for. So we did a live session last week where we went through a few of the topics, and we're just going to continue that, which is all the information that we'll need to know, hopefully, for the exam going through. Now, the difference today is that we're going to have a few different exam questions in there, be able to hopefully talk you through the sort of things that you're going to need to know, and along the way we can try and assist you in any way possible. So let's just have a quick look and just see that everything's all right in the stream. If you're not watching this live, again, there's lots and lots that you can do when you're not with us and we're not live. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and again, just trying to get as much as we can for you. So every single Sunday before the exam, we're going to have these lives going on, and also before the exam, this is where we are. So hi to George, who's already in the chat, and we will get moving with looking at our first group of topics. So last week, I should say, we looked at these. We looked at how antagonistic muscle pairs work, we looked at muscular contraction, we looked at blood vessels, we looked at the mechanics of breathing, and we looked at spirometry traces. So if they're the sort of topics that you think you need to look at, then you need to look at the previous stream to try and see exactly what we need to do for that. Whereas today, we're gonna start off looking at aerobic and anaerobic exercise. So from the information that we know from the exam board, this is a topic that is going to be coming up. Now, this could be in lots of different forms. It could be in several short answer questions. It might be an extended question. There's lots and lots of options that this topic could be coming on. So if we take a look at aerobic and anaerobic, the first thing that you guys need to understand is the difference. What do we mean by aerobic? What do we mean by anaerobic? How do we define those different things? And also, how is it then used in different sporting scenarios and sporting examples? So where we look at what you can see on the screen is that we've got a few different ideas around it. So if we take aerobic first, so primarily we need to understand that aerobic exercise and aerobic respiration uses oxygen for energy production. So oxygen is completely essential for it to happen. So in these situations, they're going to be activities that are generally going to be lasting long periods of time. So it's not a sprint, it is more of a slow and steady paced exercise. Because what we're trying to do here is that we're ensuring that the heart and lungs have all the supply of oxygen that they need to then be able to then supply the oxygen required in aerobic respiration to the muscles. So things like long distance cycling, marathon running, swimming, triathlons, long distance running, these are all aerobic exercises. Now you'll see just under the screen here that you'll see there is an aerobic equation. Now you are able to use that in your exam as a definition. So basically we need glucose and we need oxygen. Okay, that is what is going to make it the fuel source essentially for aerobic exercise. The byproducts from that are going to be carbon dioxide, water, heat, and energy. So glucose and oxygen combine to release energy aerobically. And through this process, like I say, we get these different waste products. So what happens in your exam is that you may be asked what are the byproducts of aerobic exercise. You may be asked to define what aerobic exercise is. You may be asked to understand a sporting scenario and what makes it aerobic or what makes it anaerobic. So they're the types of things that we're going to see. So looking at it in the chat, guys, yeah, the video is get live. So as soon as it finishes here, the videos get uploaded so that you can then watch them whenever. So you'll see the other live videos that I've done, they are already there waiting for you, as well as some of the ones that we did last year and even the year before. So these videos, if you can't watch it live, do not worry. Some of you probably aren't watching it live right now. So when we then look at anaerobic exercise or anaerobic respiration, what we're saying here is that it does not use oxygen for energy production. So therefore it's going to last a really, really short period of time, because essentially a red blood cell takes about 60 seconds to get around the body. So what we're saying here is there isn't enough time for the oxygen to actually go around the body, be used by the muscles to then go back and be reoxygenated. So this is including activities that are really short duration and generally very, very high intensity. So what we're saying here is that the oxygen cannot be supplied because there just isn't enough time, so therefore energy is produced anaerobically, so without the presence of oxygen. So this is going to be things like shot put, sprinting, weightlifting, long jump, anything which is lasting a few seconds. So something like a golf swing, that is very anaerobic. Whereas actually walking along the golf course would be aerobic. So in different activities, you're going to have elements that are aerobic, some elements which are anaerobic, and they're the sort of things that you're going to be asked about justifying. So when we look at anaerobic respiration, so again, we've got the things that go in, the things that come out. So lactic acid and energy are the byproducts of anaerobic respiration. Okay, so basically lactic acid is formed only in anaerobic conditions. So essentially there wasn't enough oxygen to do the different things that need to happen. Again, at GCSE, we don't need to know exactly about things like pyruvic acid. Those of you watching over A-level, you might already know about that. But glucose goes in and basically lactic acid and energy come out, and that's all produced because it is in an anaerobic exercise, an aerobic respiration, an anaerobic environment. Basically we're saying that energy is not produced because oxygen is there, it's because there is an absence of oxygen. So hopefully there's a few of you there that have got an idea about the sort of things that you're going to be looked at. We need to know about the equations, we need to know about the examples, we need to know about when it actually happens in sport. So let's have a look at the type of questions that you may see. So this is a real kind of popular question, the sort of thing that you might get in an exam question. So discuss whether weight training is an aerobic or anaerobic activity. So let's first of all look at this question and break it down. The first thing it says is discuss. So if you get a discuss question, which is likely to happen in the exam, it's asking you to look at both different arguments. So why is it anaerobic? Why isn't it anaerobic? Why maybe is it aerobic? Why is it not aerobic? So this is the sort of question that needs a little bit of thought, and it's going to use your AO3 skills. Now AO3 for you guys, hopefully all of you already know, is about your ability to analyse, ability to evaluate information. So if there's anyone in the chat who is live, can you tell me why you think weight training might be aerobic? Can you tell me why you think weight training might be anaerobic? So thinking about the things that we've just discussed, is there anything that you guys might be able to share with us in the chat that's going to help you and then help everyone else who's already in the room? So when we look at this then, we're looking at the fact that weight training can be aerobic and can be anaerobic. So if I was going to be working pure power and I'm going to be lifting weights for a short period of time, that is then going to be anaerobic. So therefore I'm not going to have enough time to be able to go and lift those weights for long periods of time. That actually makes it aerobic. However, I can, because if I increase the amount of reps I do, maybe drop the amount of weight that I do, I will do it for a longer duration of time. So they're the sort of things that we need to start talking about, and I'll show you what the mark scheme actually says for us. So let's just go to the chat, see what anyone has said. So George is saying high intensity, maximal effort is anaerobic. That's a great answer. So the fact that George there has identified the intensity he's working at, the fact that he's saying that it's high intensity, that's exactly what we're thinking about as far as anaerobic. Noah said it depends on the reps, the range or the load. George there is saying, could it be done to target muscular endurance and therefore the sets can be longer? Absolutely. So it depends on what we're trying to work. And this is where your understanding of weight training comes in. So you understand about the fact that we can work on our reps and our sets to change what we're trying to develop and what we want to work on. So if we have a look at the mark scheme, this is what the mark scheme is telling us. So these are the things that we want to know. So it says here AO3, 3 points. So we don't need to define anything in our question here. We don't need to worry about trying to be given lots and lots of examples. It's asking us to literally evaluate, is it or isn't it? So award 1 mark for the following each up to 3 marks. So here you get a sub-max of 2 marks. What that means is that you can get 2 marks for talking about it being anaerobic. If all you do is say it's anaerobic, it's anaerobic, anaerobic, you get a maximum of 2 marks. We need to discuss, we need both sides. It's aerobic and it's anaerobic. So let's look at this then. So weight training is usually high intensity with high weights and low reps, which means it could be performed over a short period of time. talking about duration. Okay, again, like we looked at when we went through the information. Lactic acid may be produced due to a lack of oxygen available in muscles. Lactic acid only occurs in anaerobic conditions. Again, that would be able to help you with that one. The body uses body sugar and or glycogen stores as an energy source to perform the exercises. Okay, now you can only get a maximum of 2 there. We would then need to say how it's aerobic as well. So here we're saying that weight training can be at a lower intensity, like we said in the chat, which means it can be performed over a long period of time. So you have to talk about duration. There is little rest in between sets and or exercises to replicate cardiovascular or muscular endurance, which is aerobic. So again, we're now linking to the intensity. Oxygen is available, which allows energy to be produced to maintain muscular contractions. Now in this question, you could do 2 aerobic and 1 anaerobic, or 2 anaerobic and 1 aerobic. But you have to do what the question says, and you have to discuss, because if you don't discuss, you're not going to get the marks. Okay, so let's just pop back into the chat and see what people are saying. So Jason said aerobic training is HIIT. Okay, the issue here is that HIIT is a different method of training, Jason, so we need to make sure that we're talking about weight training. Ian says that weight training can be at low intensities, which can be performed for a longer period of time. Fantastic. Sophie said about heart rate. Okay, the problem with heart rate and weight training is it's quite difficult for you to kind of manage where that is at. So when we talk about intensity as far as weight training, we want to make sure to talk about reps and we talk about sets. Okay, that is the thing that is going to make it way easier for you if you were to get a weight training example. If it was a continuous training example, that might be perfect. That might be you to say, yes, you're going to work for a long period of time and it's going to be within the 70 to 80% of your maximum heart rate. 70 to 90 isn't actually the sort of zone that we want if we're looking at aerobic, so just make sure you're talking about that in the correct way. Again, thanks for all those people who are in the chat and are already contributing. That is exactly what we're after. So like I say, every Sunday we're going to be on here before the exams and the nights before the exam. So there's lots and lots of things that we can do on there. So again, if there's lots of things that you can put in the chat, guys. So there are things that you can try and add in. You can get as involved as you like as we go. So the next topic that we're going to look at is all going to be now around this. So what you've got at the top where it says the 3.1.1.4 is that this is what the exam board have said is going to be some of the pre-release material that we need to be aware that may be in the exam. So the short and long-term effects of exercise, and it says particularly the long-term effects. So when we talk about long-term effects here, we are talking about after months and months of exercising and months of training. So in these situations, these are long-term effects that happen because you've trained, because you've developed your body is adapted over weeks and months to do something that it couldn't do before. So things that might happen when you are exercising over a long period of time. Your body shape may change. So what we're saying here is that actually we might change how we look. That could be things like a reduction in fat. It might be that you increase your muscle mass. There's going to be some sort of change within the body. When we talk about improved stamina, that is thinking about things like we've got improved cardiovascular fitness, we've got increased muscular endurance. Essentially, I'm able to work harder for longer without fatigue. For instance, I could go and play a 90-minute football match and play at a high intensity throughout the whole thing, rather than maybe the last 10 minutes, my performance drops because of actually I've not got the stamina, I've not got the ability to go and work at that intensity for longer. We've also got something called cardiac hypertrophy. So I had this question a few times on Instagram last week, and people were asking what hypertrophy meant. Hypertrophy is where the size of a muscle increases. It's able to produce more force. Now, if you think about that with your heart, essentially what we're saying here is that the heart can move more blood every single time it beats. So that means that actually your stroke volume will increase. So every time the heart beats, it can move more blood. Now, the effect of that is that basically the heart is going to have this really strong, powerful contraction to move a volume of blood. If you weren't as fit, if you didn't go through this idea of increased heart size, of increased cardiac hypertrophy, your heart would have to beat more often. So basically people who are fitter experience what we call a lower resting heart rate, which is known as bradycardia. Now you may see that in your exam and it may say, what is bradycardia? And it's for you guys to make sure that you understand that it's a lower resting heart rate. So people who are fitter generally have a lower resting heart rate, and the reason is that their heart doesn't have to beat as often to move the same amount of blood, so therefore it beats less. Somebody like Mo Farah, for instance, might have a resting heart rate of maybe 50 beats a minute. Someone who's less fit might have a resting heart rate of 90 beats a minute. So therefore at rest their heart is working significantly harder because their stroke volume is higher. So it's lower, I should say. So when people exercise, they get fitter, they are able to work for longer, and some of the reasons around is that their heart becomes stronger, their muscles become stronger. We become way more efficient at using oxygen. We're able to get blood around the body to where it needs to go to drop off oxygen better than other people. Now, we're also going to get changes in some of our components of fitness. So I'm going to get stronger. My muscular strength, the amount of force that I can produce is going to increase. My muscular endurance is going to increase. The amount of times that I can repeat contractions and relax and contract and relax, for instance, let's say when I was running, if I was out boxing, just simply how many punches I could throw, would increase because basically my muscular endurance is better. I'm going to get more flexible, so therefore I'm going to have a larger range of movement around the joint. I'm going to get faster, my speed will increase, I will get to the ball quicker. My cardiovascular endurance will be higher. I'll be able to supply oxygen to the working muscles for longer periods of time so I don't fatigue, I don't get tired. Now these things only happen if I do the correct method of training. This isn't just going to happen just because I exercise. My flexibility will not just increase because I'm going for a run, for instance. I've got to actually work on that component of fitness through something like stretching. If I was going to improve my muscular strength, I would have to do some sort of resistance work. It might be plyometrics, it might be weight training. If I'm going to increase my muscular endurance, I've got to think about doing something like circuit training where I'm going to be doing lots and lots and lots of repetitions. So that is the sort of thing that we're after. So George is saying that Mo Farah's heart rate was 30. That would be about, yeah, potentially about right. The fact that they are beating maybe half the times that our heart rate is going at rest. So there's lots and lots of changes that are going to happen because of someone's level of fitness. So what we're going to look at then is an exam question around this. So here is the question. Okay, real simple one. Okay, so in the chat, let's see what you guys can do. So which one of these is a long-term benefit of exercise? Is it A, a higher resting heart rate? Is it B, reduced blood pressure? Is it C, reduced stroke volume? Or D, reduced tidal volume? So let's see in the chat what people have got as their correct answer. Is it A, is it B, is it C, or is it D? So Yashika is asking, will I do a live for OCR Advanced? I don't teach OCR at my school, so it's a lot easier for me at the moment to do the AQA things. There is a wonderful one already out there from the Everlearner, so if you've not watched that already, have a look at the Everlearner. He has already done a great one on his channel, so I would go over there and have a look. So we've got some people at the moment that are saying B, we've got a C in there, we've got another B. Okay, the answer here, guys, has to be B. So the reason for that is that a higher resting heart rate is not a benefit, that we don't want that. It's reduced blood pressure, so over time the force of the blood hitting the arterial wall actually goes down. That's a good thing. Reduced stroke volume is not a benefit. If I've got less blood going out of the heart every single beat, that's not a benefit. We want an increased stroke volume. So that'd be where maybe the mistake's been made in the chat by a couple of people in there. Okay, so in there it has to be B. So just checking that one out. So let's then go to a slightly more difficult question. Okay, so this one is a 3-mark question, and it's asking you to basically state. So Amar has been training for months in preparation to complete a half marathon. He trains 4 times a week and does a mixture of steady state running, stretching and weight training. Amar's cardiovascular endurance will improve as a result of completing steady state running. State 3 other long-term effects that Amar is likely to experience as a result of completing steady state running. The trick here is that some people will read the exam question and look at the other types of training here. What we need to make sure that you're doing is that you've got a highlighter, or you're using a pen, you're using a ruler, whatever works for you, to highlight what it's asking you. So we've been given a great little scenario, brilliant. I can't say that he's going to improve cardiovascular endurance because it's already said that. It's asking for 3 other ones. So, and it's because he's doing his steady state running. So in the chat, again, those who are live, what would you go for here? So let's have a look. Arthur, improved body shape, cardiac hypertrophy, low blood pressure. Okay, if we say low blood pressure, that's saying that we've got, it may be too low, maybe lower blood pressure might be something, but is that necessarily the sort of thing that we want? If I'm doing steady state running, Sophie, would I necessarily go and improve my flexibility, or would I have to do it through stretching? So think about the sort of things that we're going to get from steady state running. So I'm going to be training, my muscles are going to be contracting, relaxing, contracting, relaxing, contracting, relaxing. Okay, that's something that's definitely going to happen. Rylan has said increased stroke volume, absolutely. We've got increased body shape, lower resting heart rate at rest. Brilliant. If anybody could use that word in the chat, that'd be amazing. So what is the proper word, the technical term that we want to use for this idea of a resting heart rate, which is lowered? So we've said better aerobic fitness there from Takora. Again, just before I put the answer up, just give a few people more a chance to have a look at putting there. Georgie's saying reduced fat. It's a potential that we could reduce our fat stores. That is a potential. There are some much simpler answers that you could use. Good work, George, with bradycardia. So what we're looking at then is this. Okay, so we need to reference the fact that your body shape may change. Some people in the chat there talked about we might reduce our fat content. Absolutely. You could say you become leaner, which they're accepting in here, but I would much prefer you to use the fact that we're going to be reducing our body fat content. I don't think anybody said improve muscular endurance. That would be one of the massive ones. I think your muscles are contracting, relaxing all the time when you're doing these steady state runs. That would be a really good one. Improve stamina. So here we're thinking about things like improved cardiovascular endurance. Increased size of the heart, so we think about cardiac hypertrophy, which then is going to have this idea of bradycardia, which was said in the chat about how we're going to improve or lower our resting heart rate. So it says here, except any other long-term effects of completing steady state running, do not accept improved cardiovascular endurance. So the reason you can't do that, you get away with stamina, but you couldn't put cardiovascular endurance, is because it already said it in the question. So let's just head over to the chat again, see what people have been saying. So so someone said better aerobic fitness. Don't use the word better, okay? Use the word improved or increased. If it's better, I don't really know what that's necessarily against, so you just got to be a little bit careful about that one. Bradycardia, again, we've got in there a lot, which is fantastic and a great answer that we've got in there. So again, great so far that we've got a few people in the chat. Generally, we tend to find that people watch this maybe a little bit after and they're a bit gutted they missed out on the live, but those of you who are already with us, amazing. So we've already done 23 minutes and we've got lots and lots of you already engaged in your revision, which is important because we've only got about 2 weeks before the exam and it will go really quick. So let's have a look in the chat. There's always a few people that are finding it a bit difficult. Anyone dying over PE yet? Because I am. Generally, it gets to this point and people suddenly realise it all matters. That's kind of what happens after. So we just need to make sure, as you are doing now, that you can do everything that you can possibly do. And by doing these exam questions, the real key point is that if you know the answer, you should get all the mark because hopefully it can help you with these skills. So, Sophie, what is the difference between cardiovascular endurance and stamina? So cardiovascular endurance is purely about the ability to deliver oxygen to the working muscles and the strength of your heart and your lungs. Stamina is the ability to work at high intensity for long periods of time without fatigue. That's the real key thing there. Will there be a session like before? Absolutely, yeah, always do that one. So, and again, same for paper 2, we'll do that one. So the long mark questions on my downfall, you should hang around them, Ryland, because we are going to go through some of those things. I also have a 6 to 9 mark question video that is definitely worth watching because it will break it down for you. Are we going to go over lever? Yep, that is coming up in today's session. That is absolutely there, and hopefully we can sort that all out for you. So let's carry on then, ladies and gents. Levers will be in the paper. Yes, everything that I'm going through today is on the list of topics which is said to be in the exam. So let's carry on then. Okay, here we go, the lever system, which has just been asked, and here it is. So what you need to understand, ladies and gents and everybody else, is that the examples that you need to know are really, really simple. You need to understand how a lever is drawn, you need to understand how a lever actually works, and what we need to do with it, and that's what we're going to go through now. So it says lever systems, examples of their use in activity, the mechanical advantages they provide in movement. You're going to be asked things around the analysis of basic movements in sporting examples. So let's look at this first, okay? You'll see in the orange box just here, okay? The way that I used to remember the levers is 1, 2, 3, FLE. Now that might sound like utter nonsense to somebody out there. Basically what we're saying is that on a first class lever, the fulcrum's in the middle. On a second class lever, the load is in the middle. And on a third class lever, the effort is in the middle. So 1, 2, 3, FLE. So if we take a look here where we've got the first class lever, okay? In the middle is the fulcrum, which matches our little acronym, F for the first one. So it's FLE, 1, 2, 3. All we need to understand from there then is that the load and the effort will be either side of the fulcrum. So however you draw it, that's what needs to happen. Now, what's important with the first class lever is the direction that the effort is going. So if I think about this idea in here, that it's going to be tipped that way, so therefore I've got to have it going like a seesaw, so I'm pushing down. Otherwise, the problem is that something like the neck joint would always be looking down because I wouldn't have the effort pulling against it. Now, one of the things that the exam board tries to do, not just to catch you out, but to check your understanding, is to get you to understand that the elbow is 2 different lever systems depending on the direction of movement it does. So I'll look at that in a second. So a second class lever has the load in the middle. Now this is the one that is generally around the ankle joint, or the toe, I should say, if we're thinking about how we actually go onto our tiptoes. And it means that you can move your entire body weight really, really easily. It's what we say has a massive mechanical advantage. It's able to move load easily. We've then got a third class lever. The third class lever, as you can see in the diagram here, has the effort in the middle. So 1, 2, 3, FLE, so 3E, so therefore that is in the middle. And then obviously we draw it either side. So let's just have a quick look at the chat, see if there's anybody who's got any questions around that. So, Takura saying levers are removed, I think. In the AQA, they are definitely not. As you can see, all I've done in the bit here is just, I've just taken this from the information that we've got from the exam board. So it says that it will be in there around that analysis of basic movements in sport, okay? And it's purely about the lever system, so it definitely is in there. So don't get caught out by anything like that, okay? We're saying I love FLE, that's what we need. So for AQA, that is absolutely what we need. So what the next thing you need to understand, guys, is mechanical advantage. So if you look in the diagram here, the distance between the fulcrum and the effort is what we call the effort arm. The difference between the load and the fulcrum is what we call the load or the resistance arm. So you may see it written slightly differently depending on some of the diagrams. So let's use the load arm because it is the load for us. So that distance is important because the mechanical advantage is the effort arm divided by the load arm. We're talking about distance here. So imagine that my fulcrum is here, my load is there, but my effort is over here. So the distance is going to be larger or not. So I just draw over the top of here, distance between the load and the fulcrum, distance between the effort and the fulcrum. So the longer the effort arm in comparison with the load arm, the more advantage it has. So if I take a first class lever, for instance, generally we're going to say that they're going to be equidistant, but the load could be anywhere between the fulcrum and the end, and the effort could be the same. So generally, it could have an advantage, it could have a disadvantage. So that's going to vary depending on how far away from the fulcrum it is. For a second class lever, it's always going to be able to lift really, really heavy loads because the effort's at the end. It's further away from the fulcrum than the load is. And a third class lever is always going to have a disadvantage, a mechanical disadvantage. So what we're saying here is that actually provides speed and a wide range of movements because of the long resistance arm, but it's not necessarily going to move anything particularly heavy or with a lot of load. So what you really need to understand, and this is where you see it in the exam, is how to calculate mechanical advantage. So it may ask you what the effort arm is. It may say what the load arm is. It'll ask you to draw a lever system, which is one of the questions we're going to look at in a second. So let's just pop back into the chat and see what people are saying. So Alvin, how do you know which direction the effort arm is? Really easy. So all the distances are taken from the point of the fulcrum. So if I've got my fulcrum here, I have my effort there, it's always going to be the distance between the fulcrum and the effort. Okay, if the effort was that side, then it's there. So it's literally just in that situation where all the measurements for the effort arm or for the load arm are taken from the fulcrum, because that's the definition of it, the distance between the effort and the fulcrum. So it's literally that distance in between. Okay, Rylan, it's only down in first class. You have to remember. Oh, that's what I did. I'm not sure what you're saying that one. Okay. Now the tricky one. This is the one that the exam board. Again, I don't know the word catch you out, but they test your knowledge. The elbow joint is both a first class and a third class lever. So anyone in the chat, can you tell me how? How is the elbow both a first class and a third class lever? So how does that actually become a thing? Because you'd expect maybe a joint can only be one thing, but the elbow can be a first class and a third class lever. And that is a question that came up a couple of years ago, and literally Twitter went mental, that people were like, oh, how can it be? I put this, I put that. And it was like those sort of maths quizzes you see on Facebook where people decide they've all got the right idea. Okay, so we've got just a tick in there for Tommy. Anybody in there anyone who think they can tell me why the elbow is both a first and a third class lever? Tommy, brilliant. It depends on how it's being used, like extended or flexed. So the forearm is a third and the rest is connecting to the third. Okay, yes and no. So basically this is what we've got, okay? Depending on where the muscle attaches, depends on what happens. So if I'm going to bring my lower arm towards me, this muscle must be attached this side. So therefore the effort is actually this side of the fulcrum. But if my load is here, therefore that becomes a third class lever. If we do extension, that is a first class lever. So basically extension at the elbow is first class, flexion at the elbow is third class, which Arthur has said in the chat, which is a fantastic example. But this is the sort of question that will come up in an exam, and people will come out of the exam, what did you put? What did you put? All you need to know: elbow, flexion, third, extension, first. Okay, if you can get that in your head, then you'll be great. Okay, so let's have a look at the sort of questions that you may have seen in some of your mocks already. So here's a diagram of a forehand tennis stroke. So it's asking you here to identify the type of lever being used at the elbow during the forehand stroke. So the elbow goes from being in extension, and it's saying it's during the stroke. So we're saying basically in the second picture what is happening. So it goes from extension to flexion. So in the chat then, during the forehand tennis stroke, which is the lever that is being used? Okay, so that's what we're doing, and then we're asked to draw the lever. So basically in the chat, or if you're at home trying this, either draw it, but in the chat, can you tell me maybe what's in the middle of the lever? Because that should give us the answer for the rest of the question. So let's just pop into the chat. So lots and lots of people there are putting their answers in, and we've got lots of people saying a third class lever. So therefore, what is in the middle of that lever then when we're going to be putting our answer to help us to draw it? So Sophie sent the third biggest flexion. Well done, Sophie. She's given a lovely answer there. Okay, and that's showing your understanding. That's showing that you have already picked up on the things that we've talked about, which is amazing. So in your exam, then you're now going to be asked to draw that that lever system. Okay, so we're going to be having load on one side, effort on the other side, the fulcrum on the other. Okay, so therefore, basically as long as you draw the effort in the middle, the other one should make sense. Now, the other thing is thinking about which direction the arrow is going to go, but that should be pretty straightforward for us. So well done to everybody in the chat. Give yourselves a big round of applause. Just those people in the chat, and again, sorry if you're not watching this live. In the chat, guys, I'm interested to see how you guys found this. Do you follow on different things? I'm always quite intrigued to understand how people have actually found me, and then how we can try and help you in the future. So the next thing that you need to understand is this is what we're looking for. Okay, so third class EV, you've always said that. You've said effort is in the middle. You've said that load's on one side. You said that the fulcrum is on the other. And this is how you have to draw it. So please make sure that you always put the load on top of the seesaw, essentially, on top of the lever, on top of what would be the bones, possibly, if you're thinking about it in the body. And always make sure that your fulcrum is below when you draw that way. So this is how we need to draw it. So here we go. All right, this is the next thing. Okay, now this is one that maybe you've not thought about as much as the other ones. Maybe you've been revising levers and you've been revising planes and axes, or you've been revising, the location of the joints and all those different ones. But if you look at this, there's 2 different bullet points. So this might be quite a heavy topic in the exam. So the components of fitness, the benefits of sport, and how fitness is measured and improved. So you need to be able to link sports and physical activity to the required components of fitness, and you need to be able to look at the reasons for and the limitations of fitness testing. So we're going to look at this through a question in a second to understand how we might answer this to then be able to assist you. So just head back to the chat, see if anyone's had any comments on there. So some people are founders through their research GCSE PE revision and founders. If you're not already following us, please do, because I always do a question and answer session on there quite regularly. Does it matter where the load and the fulcrum is, like side by side? Generally, no. It's about what's in the middle of the lever becomes the important thing. And then, so essentially people are finding it almost by mistake. It's always the way. But hopefully now you're founders, you know where we're going to be, and I'm always around for questions via our social media channels. I say our, Planet PE is just me at the moment. So where we are at then is that we've got these components of fitness. So there's loads of those components of fitness. We're not going to focus on those too much this evening. What we're going to focus on is how we test them. So cardiovascular fitness is tested by the multi-stage fitness test. Okay, anyone in the chat think they know the other name for the multi-stage fitness test? Whack it in there, but please never use that one because it'll always ask you about the multi-stage fitness test. There have been questions on this before where they have literally said, can you describe the protocol for testing cardiovascular fitness? So you would have got marks for saying it's the multi-stage fitness test that we set cones 20 meters apart. You have to run to the cone or the line before the beep, which is on an audio recording. You then have to try and meet the beeps. You can't miss 3. You then pull out once you can't go any further or you've missed 3 beeps. It is used to test cardiovascular endurance, blah, blah, blah. So this is real common. So again, I'll leave it on there. I'll just check I'm not in the way because I do have a habit of sticking my face in the way, which I've not done today, which is great. So you need to understand that, as lots of people have said in the chat, the bleep test, okay, again, but it has to be, it's called the multi-stage fitness test for us, is set up in a particular way. You need to understand that. But what we really want to understand about all these different fitness tests is essentially what is it about them that is good, why do we use them, and what are the limitations of fitness testing in general. Now, if you've ever done the bleep test or the multi-stage fitness test, you'll know that it's pretty horrible. And actually, the hardest thing to do is to not kid yourself that you've done enough. So there are elements around that means that fitness testing might not be necessarily the most valid thing in the world. It might mean that some of the results aren't very reliable. So when we look at the reasons for fitness testing, the first thing is that I want to do a fitness test to understand my strengths and weaknesses. I would like to do that so I know what I've got to go and improve on. So let's say that you were brand new to fitness, or you were brand new to a sport. You might want to go, okay, what do I need to do to improve? Do all these different fitness tests, and you might realise that it's your cardiovascular fitness, that your balance and your flexibility are the weaknesses. And you only know that if you've compared it to some data. So all of these fitness tests have data which is said that you're excellent, you're good, you're average, below average, or poor. So you can be able to see, not just against people in your class, not just people in your school, but nationally, internationally, where do you stand? So that's a great thing for identifying what your fitness level actually is. You can then use that to use the scores as a motivation. Because let's say you've been training for a period of time, let's go and retest. Have I actually improved my fitness? So fitness testing is purely a test. It's not anything there that is pure, that is for you to use to train. It's a method of seeing where you are at. So therefore that could help you to set goals. It could help you to identify your training requirements. It could help you to identify the level of fitness you are at. It could show the strengths and weaknesses of where you are. It can also be used to monitor what you're doing. So you may be doing a fitness program, and it would help you to monitor, is that fitness program actually working? Is it there something that you can then compare your scores to other people to then go, actually, yeah, I've got better. Yeah, I'm in that world-class category. Oh yeah, I'm better than I was. I'm at the same level of the people in my football team. So there's loads and loads of things that you guys could do with the results from your fitness testing. So, as people have already said there, it's amazing. Some of you have come for some great points already. So, when we do fitness testing, the key thing is it does not necessarily make you better at sport. It's not telling us that we're going to be really good at football. We're not going to tell us we're going to be really good at netball. It's the really general test. So if I take the sit and reach, for instance, so the sit and reach test, which is just here, the sit and reach test is a test of flexibility. But it's a test of flexibility of your hamstrings, really, about how much movement you have around the hip joint. Now, if that's somewhere that you're not particularly flexible, it's going to tell you your flexibility is awful. But your shoulder flexibility might be amazing. And maybe in your sport, you need shoulder flexibility. So it sometimes isn't sport specific. It doesn't really tell us exactly what's going to happen, because it's not really in the same activity that we do. The tests sometimes require direct measurement, and sometimes they're not necessarily measured correctly, so that's something to factor in. It's also going to require your effort, so some tests need lots of motivation. So the fitness test, for instance, is exhausting to go and do. You need to be able to ensure that somebody is fully motivated when they do it. Some tests question reliability. So if you and I did a test, we wouldn't necessarily get the same result, because I might have stopwatched a different time to what you started at. We might have slightly mismeasured how far apart the cones are. So there's things like that. So they're the things that you need to have a look at. So the question that we're going to do is this one. Oh, here's that one. So Matthew is a year 7 student who's a very good all-round sportsman. He has recently undertaken a series of fitness tests to measure his fitness levels. The multi-stage fitness test was used to measure Matthew's cardiovascular endurance. Lots and lots of information about Matthew. Discuss whether fitness testing is an appropriate way of assessing Matthew's sporting ability. So in this question, there's information that we need to take out of it that's going to help us. So we know he's a good sportsman. I would be circling or highlighting that. He's recently undertaken a series of fitness tests to measure his fitness levels. The multi-stage fitness test was used, for instance, to measure his cardiovascular endurance. But it's saying here, discuss whether fitness testing just in general is going to be a good way of assessing his sporting ability. So people in the chat, is there anything that you might put around that? So is using fitness testing a good way of predicting somebody's sporting ability? Is it that, the fittest people are just the best at sport? Anybody who's watching this not live, then the key point is that this is something that you can look at any time. Those of you who are live that maybe have just come into the this will be live. This will be available on the channel as soon as we finish, so you can go back and watch anything that you might have missed. So a couple of marks in the case. So how many marks is it? Now this question is from the older spec, and at the time it was a 5-mark question. For us here, it's saying discuss. This could be a 6-mark question. This could be a 9-mark question. This is the sort of point that I'm trying to make to you guys. So, is fitness testing a good way or an appropriate way of testing Matthew's sporting ability? Some people in the chat have instantly said, no, it's not. Brilliant. Okay. So, Jason said he's only year 7, so his growth will affect his results. Potentially. Okay. Potentially, there's an issue around his age. That's something that absolutely you want to look at. It can be compared to national averages. There you go. So straight away, we can get an idea of where he is at in relation to other people. It doesn't replicate the actual sport or the exact sport. Again, another really good thing. So, we are in a situation where we're saying, right, we're going to test somebody's fitness to assess what they're going to be like at sport, but we're not actually going to do the specific things that you need in your sport. We're just going to get you to run a straight line, for instance. So, Georgie said there that he's got a lack of motivation that might not accurately represent his fitness. That's a lovely point to make. It's a great AO3 point. Okay, but nobody so far said that why it could. So it says discuss. Remember, any discussion question, we need a broad and balanced argument. So is there anybody in the chat, I should say, who can say about why we think that testing might be accurate? About why it might actually be something that we want to do, about the reason that it could be used to predict his sporting performance. So Daisy said it's good for identifying his strengths and weaknesses. Absolutely. Okay. So let's say that we weren't sure what sport that Matthew was going to be doing. Maybe by doing fitness testing, we might get an idea of some of his strengths and some of his weaknesses and those sports that he might be most suited to. Tommy is saying it's good for strengths and weaknesses to improve. Yeah, so again, just like we said before, one reason might be that he could use it to motivate himself, to try and show him where he is currently at. Okay, so let's have a look then at the mark scheme for this. Remember, at the point it was a 5-mark question, but we can definitely stretch it out. So, if you are agreeing, we're saying that fitness testing is a good way of identifying Matthew's strengths and weaknesses, therefore maybe a good indicator of his sporting ability. Okay, so Daisy said that in the chat. Fitness testing can be used to monitor improvement and therefore allow for modifications to be tailored to a specific sport. So therefore, again, we can start to go, oh yeah, you're quite fast, in a straight line. Maybe sprinting might be the sort of activity you could be good for. Fitness testing can be compared to norms of a group and can be compared to national averages that could then forecast or predict the future. Okay, so we've got 3 points there that we could have made. Now, in a discussion question, quite easy. It's quite simple to really focus on. Oh, yeah, it's terrible. We can't possibly do that, or really support it. With a discussion question, we have to say fors and we have to say against. Okay, so the against, just like some people said in the chat, Matthew is only in year 7, so the test would not be a good predictor of his rate of growth or muscular structure, which may determine his sporting ability. Essentially, let's say that you've got Matthew, he might be a rugby player, he might be the smallest person on his team in year 7. Doesn't always happen by the time they get to year 11, so is that necessarily a predictor of his sporting ability? Absolutely not. Tests are often not sport specific and are generally too general. Therefore, a poor indicator for a specific sport or a specified sport. So that idea where I was saying about the sit and reach, for instance, it tests flexibility of one joint. It's one, something we all do. However, for certain activities, that might not be the best one. They do not replicate the actual movement needed for a specified activity, only the components of fitness. So a similar point. They don't replicate the competitive or environmental factors required in many sports. So again, linking to the fact that about how sport specific it is, the movement's different, is the competitive nature of it different. Many tests do not use direct measuring and are sub-maximal. And therefore, they may be predictive and therefore inaccurate in their results. So basically, they're using a predictive thing. So if you're working at this level, it's going to mean that this is where what's possible. So therefore, again, it's basically guesswork. Many tests require him to be motivated to gain accurate results, like we said, so therefore the information might actually be misleading. So therefore it may say that he's got a terrible cardiovascular endurance. He just didn't try very hard on the multi-stage fitness test. Some tests have a question about their reliability, so therefore, again, how the testing is actually done, so therefore it might give us some inaccurate data. Some tests have question validity, so do they actually test what they're trying to test? So the inline agility test, for instance, the fastest people in a straight line generally have quite a big advantage. So is it testing speed or is it testing agility? So that's something to think about with that one. And some testing may not be carried out with the correct procedures, which will affect the results. If you get a group of year 7s to go and do a load of tests, some of them break the world records as far as what they're concerned, because they'll say, oh yeah, it was 9 seconds, it was 6 seconds. Well, it might have been 9.99 seconds, but they will say 9, which is almost a second different. So their procedure might be the issue. Right, let's pop back into the chat, see what anyone's got to say over here. So lots of things, lots of really, really good points in there. Would you be able to answer this in a table? No. It says discussed. I had this question from one of my year 11s on Friday. Any extended question has to be a show of your ability to write for longer periods of time in continuous prose is what we call it. So you have to be able to show your strengths and the weaknesses, you'll agree, you'll disagree in paragraph forms. Okay, so you can't bullet point, you can't do it in a table. Is this the whole of paper 1? No, so we did half of the paper 1 stuff last week, so that's on the channel, and this is most of what's left really. So we're just going through bits at a time. If you've missed any of it, Oliver, just pop, just as soon as we finish, it will be live and available for you. I do have a video of the entire paper 1 on the channel. I think it's paper 1 in 79 minutes, so you can check that all out on there. So, right, so that's where we are with that bit, okay? So as far as where we've gone through, so these are I'll just go through very quickly again. So these are what we've done so far. So last week we looked at antagonistic muscle pairs and we looked at muscular contraction because we know these are going to be in there. It's really important that you guys all understand the fact that muscles work in pairs. They are agonists and antagonists. The agonist is the muscle which is shortening. The antagonist is the one that is lengthening. We have isotonic contractions, we have concentric, and we have eccentric contractions, which are both isotonic contractions. This is one that tricks my students out a little bit. They seem to get a little bit confused about the difference between arteries, veins, and capillaries. This is what we went over last week. So this is something that, again, on one of the previous videos, you can head back and go and look. And we looked at the redistribution of blood, which I think will be a pretty major point that you guys need to understand, because generally people answer that really badly. So basically the fact that your blood vessels can either vasodilate or constrict, which affects the pathway of blood across the body. We looked at mechanics of breathing, so how we actually breathe. We looked at lung volumes, about these idea of spirometry traces, about how we interpret them. Today we've gone through aerobic and anaerobic exercises. We've gone through some questions. We've gone through the long-term effects of exercise. We've gone through some questions. We've gone through levers. We've done a question. We've gone through fitness testing, and we've done a question. So that is pretty much where we are at, and that is kind of, as far as today, where we need to be. So what I would do for now, so those of you who are watching live, probably worth you to turn off now. Anybody in the chat, guys, any questions that you've got, let's do a bit of a free reign as far as questions, and I'll see what I can do for the last kind of 10 minutes really, because I think we'll just do an hour tonight. So let's see what people are saying in the chat. Now, there might be a bit of a lag. I think there's about a 15-second delay between me saying something in the real world and it going on the internet and then getting to you on YouTube. So let's have a look at where we are. So Sophie, is diet and nutrition paper 1? No, diet and nutrition is paper 2. Is there a video just on muscle contractions? Yep, on my channel there is a video about that, so it's worth checking out. No problems, Daisy. Thank you very much for watching. Tommy, thanks for watching. If anyone's got any questions, always send us. You can always ping me a message via Instagram. It's always planet_PE. So try and get as many people out there. Share it with the people at school as well, so we get as many people as we can. So topics not included on both papers. Will there be low tariff? Yes. So we have a list of topics, and they're the main focus ones. However, let's say that something like planes and axes, that still might come up. But it might be a multiple choice question, it might be a 2-mark question. I would expect the ones that we have told to focus on, which would be the vast majority of the paper. Oliver, what is hypertrophy? Hypertrophy is the increased size and strength of a muscle. If it's cardiac hypertrophy, it's the heart. So we went through hypertrophy earlier as far as one of the things, so if you came a bit later, again, you can watch this as we go. So again, any last little questions that anybody wants to ask in there? So I start with heart structure. Is that low tariff? Okay, it will probably be a low tariff question. However, it may be something which synoptically might come into an extended one. So it's something you still need to look at. Basically, if you like football, think Aston Villa. It's always the A at the top. It's always the V at the bottom. Aston Villa goes through that way. That's always the way to think about. And left is right and right is actually left. This helped me so much. Big thank you. I showed a lot of methods of training, and that topic helped today. Oh, brilliant! Thank you very much, Sophie. So again, love the fact that some of you get involved, and this is being helpful for you. That is the reason I do it. Those of you who don't know, I'm a head of PE in West London. But not for much longer, sadly. So let's see what happens with the rest of things along the way there. So last few minutes then, guys. Any topics that anybody just wants a quick recap on? I need help writing netball, dance and shot put coursework. Four different things. It's a funny one. I do have a playlist purely about the coursework. So my suggestion for you is that go back onto my channel, go and click the playlist, and you'll see NEA coursework, and it will show you exactly how to go and do the coursework pieces in the best possible way. Georgie, yes, I did watch. No, actually, no, I didn't watch Leicester because it wasn't on. It wasn't on. I've not yet seen the goals, but it was not really the result that I wanted, sadly. So last couple of minutes then, guys, is there anything else anyone wants to go through before we just sign off? And then hopefully you guys can get on with your revision, and we'll see you again next Sunday. So next Sunday we might look at some of the paper 2 topics, but more likely probably a bit of a Q&A thing for you guys, because it won't be long before your exams. So hopefully not all struggling too much. If anyone's struggling with revision, on the channel there is a how to revise video looking at different methods. If anyone has not yet downloaded the Adapt Score app, I would look at using that, because that will give you a revision timetable, and if you miss a day it will dump it in there for you. Where are we at? So what's the highest coursework score? The highest coursework score is 100. 25 is the written bit and 25 for the sports. I've got a 6-week training program to start. I'm not sure how to start it. Do you have any suggestions? Sophie, is that for EdXL by any chance? Just as you're going through that one. What are the grade badges like? No, the grade badges change every year, and they're not set until every person has sat the exam and they've been marked. So basically, there will be a certain percentage of students who will get a 4 and above. There is a certain percentage of students who will get a 4 and below, and that will be determined by how people do. So if everyone found it really, really easy, the boundaries are higher. If the scores were generally lower, then the boundaries go down. So SHL, is this health and fitness? No, health and fitness is on a paper 2. So that's something, again, that if you want to know about that, I've got a paper 2 video already on the channel. Slightly less good quality than this one, but it's on there. Okay, so I reckon that is pretty much us done, guys. So again, if you've only just joined the stream, sorry if you're a little bit later. The information will be live as soon as I press end stream, and you can go and rewatch it. If you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. It's all planet_PE. And again, on there, I put lots of question and answer things, try and get as interactive as possible, because I know that at times you might get a thought in your head about PE to go, oh, I need to know about this. And maybe that's the thing to look at. It's AQA sport. You have to do a 6-week training program and sport and fit and stuff involved. So that's section B. Yeah. So have a look at my channel. Have a look at the videos. I've got a section A and a section B video. You need the section B. So therefore, go and have a look at that. But you don't have to do a full 6 weeks, by the way. So don't get pulled into that too much. You literally just have to say that. How does exercise affect the respiratory system? So the respiratory system, pretty straightforward really. All the muscles get a bit stronger, so therefore when we are trying to use the force, which is generally happening in exercise, everything happens a little bit stronger. So basically your tidal volume might alter, your inspiratory reserve volume might alter a bit, but basically we're really getting more efficient, so we should be able to be able to improve our functionality of gaseous exchange. So therefore we can get oxygen in easier, we can get carbon dioxide out easier, and then generally we have that gaseous exchange process happening much more efficiently. Would be the key point in that one. So just last 30 seconds then, guys. Any final bits from anybody? So like I say, if there is a thing you're looking for, check me out on Twitter. On the first page, I have a revision checklist. I think there's a video for it on the channel where if you're not sure, you can go down, click the one that you need to then go from there. If there's anything that, for any other exam boards that anyone needs to do, check out the Everlearner. He has done lots and lots of different videos already out there. I think he's done all the GCSE ones. Check out his YouTube channel as well, and their website, because they've got some really, really good stuff on there to test yourself. But aside from that, guys, thanks for everyone who has been watching, and enjoy your evenings. Later.